Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by, if I could see because my screen's covered in the presentation that we were doing in the pre-show, we are joined by Arwin. Turn my lights off so I can read them. 10th Man, Righteous Force, Neil, who else have I missed? And a whole bunch of people in Discord and Matrix. So welcome, one and all.
Real professional.
Hello, good
Very
afternoon.
professional.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Well, I've had persistent computer crashes in the last week, so I've spent all weekend super tuning the computer and making sure it's stable, which means that for the barrage of 5-hour tests that I did on it, it probably won't make any difference. It'll probably still crash halfway through the show. I don't trust any of the stress tests anymore. You spend hours and hours testing things and making sure they're stressed so that when you actually come to do a live show, it works, and then you find it fails. But there we go. It's, as far as I am concerned, fully stress tested, so we should have a full live show today as far as as it should go. Probably won't. Anyway, any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No evidence for it, but they say the reason the stars appear to move is because the Earth is rotating under the stars.
Well, the last I heard, I'm not coming in.
If
You're
the
coming
Earth
in.
was moving under anything, then it would be moving under everything. And flights
That's
going
correct.
west.
Yeah.
Well, what if they say Earth and atmosphere move as one, and they take that tact in argument?
Well, then there's no Coriolis effect. A Coriolis effect is induced as you turn beneath things. It can only be induced if you're turning beneath things, and it's the observation of how things seem to move when you turn beneath them.
Do you think that escapes them when they do that?
Yeah.
That's obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
But unless you think of the entire universe spinning around the stationary ball Earth.
Then there's no Coriolis effect.
Correct.
Same thing.
Yeah, but if it's a stationary ball Earth, then what did the spinning ball Earth have over the stationary ball Earth?
Well, that it is the actual reference frame, right? So it is
No, I'm
moving.
just-
It's the universe that's moving around it. So it's not going to be subjected by any forces or Coriolis deviation other than what the universe is doing in relation to it.
Right, but they've already made the claim that the Earth is spinning, and for them to all of a sudden stop and say, "Okay, we were wrong. The Earth's still a ball, but it's stationary, and the universe and the stars are moving around the Earth." And
Yep. Yeah, I know they made those claims. They also claimed that there was 1/6 gravity on the moon. Yeah, that's a problem too.
Right, but they can't walk it back at this point because they've made this claim for a long time now, and they got sophisticated machinery and really smart people at the helm, and all of a sudden they're going to say, "Oops, we were wrong. The Earth is still a ball." Those darn flat earthers. But you know what? The stars are moving after all, not the Earth. Are they going to do that?
You mean really smart people like Don Pettit?
Now that's smartness.
Hey, Chaco.
Morning, guys. How's
Well,
everybody?
maybe they've lost the technology to recreate a Dom Pettit. I don't know.
No, they didn't lose it. They destroyed it. And it's a painful process to bring it back.
Yeah, they
Aw.
taped over it.
Listen, I grew up in the era of VCRs where if you didn't have something, you didn't have room, you didn't have a blank tape, you had to record over stuff. You know, the things that are the least important. You know, so I mean, the greatest achievement humans have ever done. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
we should definitely record over that.
Well,
I
you
never,
know,
I never understood.
They
that.
Hold on,
really
everyone stop a
needed to
second.
record
Everyone
the
stop.
Saturday
Stop,
morning
stop.
cartoons, guys.
Guys, as much as it's a fun discussion, and I'm glad you brought it up, you need to offer some context to the audience. So what's being discussed between Chocolate and Arwin in a very jovial manner is a freedom of information request that was made to NASA some time ago. And the response that was given later, also repeated in a television interview, was that the tapes of the moon landings, the originals, that is, not that there were any originals, there was no moon landing, but the ones that are claimed, purported to be of man landing on the moon, were recorded over. And the legitimacy for that claim was that tapes were very expensive. I kid you not. Anyway, just so the audience has context, feel free to continue.
yeah, but you failed to realize, Chocolate, that they were during the 80s when the Lakers and Celtics were playing and they needed to catch that game 7. So they needed that tape.
You sure?
on a
You sure? Sure, it wasn't the Bulls game 7?
Well, it could have been that one too.
But why was chocolate? Why did they consider it painful?
I don't know. That's the terminology that the smartest, incredibly intelligent Don Pettit decided to use. I don't know.
It's painful
Maybe
because
he's-
like a
Maybe
lack
he's trying
of
to throw some emotion in there. I don't know.
like a lack of fibre in your diet, crapping out a new live out of the moon or space travel is very difficult.
You know, when you have a budget that NASA has of millions and millions each day, you would think that when they do their annual budget, they'd say new tape by new tape.
That was an argument. Somebody said that that's not true. They don't go through millions and millions each day. That's just another flat earther poisoning the well.
Really? I pull it from their own
Who
site.
doesn't do what?
Yeah, in other words, NASA. That's fabricated. I don't
So when
care
you
if they
look-
spent
You
100,000
can
a year.
literally
So
look
much.
up their. You can literally look up their budget.
In the last 4 years,
Yeah.
it was up. It used to be something like 50 million, then it went up to 55. So
Now it's 60 something, I believe.
exactly. The change from 50 to 55, I remember being relatively well publicised. In other words, it wasn't like it was being hidden how much they piss at the wall, lying to us about space. They were quite
No,
open
they got-
about it.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. I remember watching on TV where they're in front of the Congress asking for more.
Indeed. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What's gravity?
Yeah, which one?
No, but it's a nice segue into our hopefully last video on this dude, as he's getting particularly irritating, I won't lie. Also, if you want to check out what we did in the pre-show, it was a Facebook article that was covered in regards to how... Was it the 2008 article? It was 2008, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, you can fill us in. For those of you who are members, or those of you who want to wait till Thursday and see it on the second channel, subscribe today if you didn't want to spend money on being a member, which is fair enough. But if you are, it'll come out obviously when the show crashes or when the recording ends.
Yeah, it was called Top 10 Ways to Know the Earth is Not Flat, August 19, 2008.
It's an interesting flashback because it's before
You
our
said
time, right?
2008.
Yeah, that would have been around the time that Charles Flat Earth Math was seeing the tail end of the most recent, prior to us, resurgence of Flat Earth. So back when I was doing Flat Earth UK, one of the people I interviewed was Charles Flat Earth Math. And he, as far as I could ascertain, because I'd asked literally every single guest, how did you find out that the Earth is flat? Obviously, slightly paraphrased for Charles. But in so doing, he explained that he had been on the circuit since well before, I think he said 2005. It's going back a while. That could be wrong. But it's not really that relevant other than to say that at that point, he was although not a flat earther, the longest established quote-unquote flat earther, or someone who is aware that there'd been a resurgence that was completely unbeknownst to not only me, but everybody around me who was currently singing the virtues of flat earth. But Charles was well aware of how that information was being disseminated through forums and newspapers and various similar aspects to what we've seen in the last 10 years, actually. But Charles Flat Earth Math had seen that. And I asked him, "Oh, hey, where are they all now? They've all vanished. They've all disappeared. There aren't any anymore. None of the people from the 2000s resurgence of Flat Earth are still in existence, to my knowledge. You know, nobody's come forth and said that they are that person. And the earliest of the common resurgence, if you want to call it that, is probably Math Powerland, if you are to take it as read what he says. But like I say, before him, it's Charles. He's been around knowing that people are talking about this subject as an anti-flat earther. So the only remnants of that resurgence is an anti-flat earther.
Resurgence from when, Nathan? The 70s, the Flat Earth Society?
Well, that was the one prior, unless you can find me one in the 80s or 90s, but I don't think so. But yes, there's the 70s moving into the 80s, then there's the 2000s, and then there's us. So every, 10 or 15, maybe 20 years, there's a resurgence of Flat Earth that eventually gets suppressed and then rears its head again, but with totally different people, a decade or so later. It's just nuts. Yeah, like I say, I learned
coming back like Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, well, I learn a lot just by doing those interviews. A few carefully phrased questions, and you find a lot about the immediate history of what you think is a resurgence in something that has obviously had to been fought off for a long time. And given the multiple resurgencies, or whatever the plural is, for us coming back again and again and again, like the zombie that won't die, it's because you can't kill the nature of reality. There will always be resurgence if we get killed off, metaphorically, let's hope. There will be another one. Because it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there's people who can look at the land, measure it and go, it's flat. Or navigate it in the case of celestial navigation and go, it's flat. Now, since Charles, the guy who services my computer and hopefully will service my amplifiers moving forward, as he let that slip that he could do that work. I was like, big mistake. But he's been into Flat Earth for as long as forever, like since the 90s. And back then it was dial-up and bulletin boards on the internet. But he was still managing to find the information. It just wasn't as concise. Maybe I'll ask him about the 2000s resurgence. That would probably be the most sensible thing to ask him next time I speak to him.
Well, guess what? It's not going nowhere now, Nathan, because there's the internet and it's moving forward.
Yeah, I would say
I hate that phrasing. Hold on, Ted. I hate that. Going anywhere. We're talking about the ground that we argue to be stationary, and you're saying it's not going anywhere. Okay, way to reify it into a capable of excommunication.
You know what I'm talking
My bad,
about.
middle of a sentence. Way of reifying it into a capable of excommunication community when it's actually just the nature of the ground you're standing on. Now, whether or not the people around you are going to be part of a religious cult, which is ultimately what heliocentrism is, people have been part of various different cults throughout the history of forever. And the awareness of the cult determines whether or not it's a successful cult or not. So the fact that there is a mass delusion of heliocentrism, cult-like behaviour, to keep people under control, well, let's say we were successful in your vein of it's not moving forward anymore, or it's moving forward quickly, right? If it was successful, let's say everybody tomorrow recognised it was flat, there'd be a replacement. It wouldn't necessarily be about the nature of Earth, but there'd be some other control structure that was put in place to demonstrate the same systems of control, where the churches
Why
used
do
to
you
keep us
always poo-poo it?
Well, because where the churches used to
I
keep...
don't get it.
That's just what's going to happen.
Well, the
People
Nathan, you have a Flat Earth show, Nathan. You have a Flat Earth debate show daily. We're making progress. There's arguments all the time. My sister-in-law outright said you are unintelligent and refuses to look at any information. So we got them backed against the wall. And I know Brian will back me on this. And this is going to be the assassination blow. The argument will go forward. And yes, the world will one day see and understand that we're not in a damn ball.
Neil, let me explain what Nathan's trying to say. Nathan's trying to say, first you have gravity, right? And it's mass attract mass Newtonian. Then they say, oops, it's Einsteinian bending of 4D space-time, a fourth dimension. Okay, now, oops, quantum. So now it's quantum gravity. Einstein's been thrown under the bus just like he threw Newton under the bus. So that's always evolving is all Nathan is saying.
Ted,
What
Ted,
you're
I
s-
understand.
Let me
but I'm
finish. Let me
saying we're
finish.
here
Let-
now, though.
Let me finish. Let me finish. What you're saying is what I agree with as well. The technology today is different than in the past in these 10, 15-year periods. You needed to buy a book or read it in a newspaper. And it's very hard for people to do that. But now it's on their smartphone. It's not going anywhere. It's at a crescendo moment. Decisions are being made which side of the line you're going to be on. So you're right, and he's right.
Thank you. Well summarized. That's how I feel.
I don't know what you guys talk about with all this advancement in technology. I mean, we went to the moon in '69, and today we can't do shit. So
Hey, my
with that.
toaster still makes toast chocolate.
But does it make space toast?
Well, now you got me in the jam.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, so for some reason, where last week, this is maybe progress, where my entire OBS crashed. Now OBS has semi-crashed to where I can't change anything, but we are still broadcasting live. So that's progress, I guess. So we're going to be stuck with this screen indefinitely, it seems. Unless I can get it to change. No, I can't. It's just giving me the preview screen. Let's just see if I press a button, does it change it from here? Although I'm not going to press anything. It's semi-crashed, but we're still broadcasting, so I'm happy to carry on. Just don't ask me to present anything, and we're just going to have to be stuck with the chat, which is no bad thing, because it means I can shout out super chats and they'd be visible. Shout out to Jardo. I remember my brother and I doing IRC chats on Flat Earth groups in 1999. Ooh, cool. And I still have diary notes. Its resurgence, it's only due to the explosion of social media, and in particular, the Robertson Jenis movie, The Principal. Right, okay, cool. Thank you for that, Jardo. Really appreciate the super chat as well. Thank you very much for the support.
I'd like to see some of them notes.
Again?
Does that mean you're not going to review the video today because of your situation?
Yeah, well, I can't change anything.
Yeah, okay. No, I just wanted more clarity because I got to leave in about 15 minutes.
I was just saying I'd like to see some of them notes that he has from 1999. That would be interesting.
Indeed. But yeah, as we're stuck without a video to review. I mean, I don't know if can I change it because
Well, we can do housekeeping questions if we can't watch the video.
Well, I only want to do a couple of housekeeping questions. Now, I can actually bring it up because I do it with a screen capture. OBS crashing. This is why I do it this way. People are like, why don't you just do it with an overlay? Well, because then if OBS crashes like now, I can't do anything. But as it's capturing the screen, I can actually do something. So we're going to cover this today. So let's see. Go and let this guy know. Not that we haven't 3 times already. But this will be, and definitely will be, unless the entirety of OBS crashes, the last time we cover this guy. If not, we'll be covering it tomorrow. In any event. Right, here we go. Check him out. Let him know. Nathan Oakley 1980 or at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Now, I don't know if Anthony Riley's out there listening, but he may, well, hopefully want to join. But this is called Gravity and Density. Interesting title. So we'll go through this. We'll give it a bit of a response and we'll see how we get on.
Hi, everyone. If the Earth is round, why don't we fall off it? And
why would something that's round imply that you have an edge to fall off into space? That makes no sense, given that every time that in recent history, semi-recent history, people have gone out to discover more lands, they travelled out towards space. That would be towards the horizon and the lands that they didn't know yet. Well, they discovered new worlds when they travelled out to space. But you think we'll fall off the edge? It's absurd. Go on, whoever it is.
That was me. I just wanted to say he's certainly not building up to stupid.
How
He's
can
just
water
going
stick to a
stupid
spinning
right
ball?
away.
Yeah, because the first thing he says is, if the Earth is round. Like, well, I mean, I got a quarter in my pocket that's round. Is that a sphere? It's like, what are you talking about, bro?
these are questions flat earthers want to think of as gotcha questions, but in order to do that, they have to deny the existence of gravity. Well, it should be easy enough
What's
to
gravity?
Well, we'll see. Maybe he'll define it.
solve. If gravity doesn't exist, how do you explain this?
So he's obviously not very well educated because he thinks it's the mass attracting mass gravity. Who's going to correct him, or am I?
Let me
Nobody.
just check my calendar real quick.
So what he did was just dropped a pen. Yeah. So go on, Chocolate. You go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Well, you're right. He's 108 years out of date, isn't he? So please share the show, by the way. 75 people watching. Woohoo! He's dropping a pen and making the assertion that mass is attracted to mass. Okay. What if he had a helium balloon in his hand? Would it have gone down towards the mass of Earth, or would it have gone up? What about if he was in a different medium? What about if he was in water? Would the pen have floated to the top when he dropped it, standing on the bottom of the pool? So this is an incomplete description of some things go down. Yes, some things go down. Some things remain neutral. Some things go up. Is he going down? No, he's remaining neutral. He's in full arrest. So he's not going down, but something he's taken out of equilibrium, picked up, is going to go down after he displaces the air that it had been moved through to get it into disequilibrium. Okay, that's a crap example. Further to that, bending geodesics in fourth-dimensional space-time is the current gravity. Been superseded by quantum mechanics, but we won't go there yet because he's not even there. He's 108 years out of date with his dropping pens. Shout out to...
Notice how he starts. Go on, Chocolate.
Shout out to Ills G, member for 3 months. He says, the Pied Piper missed a note when the news presented the Chicago skyline as a mirage. That's when I woke up to flat Earth. Cool. Thanks for letting us know. Go 10th.
Oh, yeah. Notice how he starts. It almost starts, if I could explain it properly, around a ball Earth, why don't you fall off? And then gravity. Of course, the title is Gravity and Density. But he says it almost in a negative, not apologetic way, like in a defensive way, but he just starts off in the wrong way. Rather than establishing what is gravity and the R value of the Earth, he starts off the way he did. You follow what I'm saying?
But to back you up on that, it's that he's starting off with his premise already knowing that there's a problem with his premise, because look what he said. Oh, if the Earth is round, then why don't people fall off it? Right? So he understands that
Yes.
in his paradigm, that's what would happen. So he has to put that on flat Earth. It's like, oh, this is a problem that flat Earthers think is a gotcha, but they don't understand gravity. Right?
He
So
started off projecting immediately.
It's like the first stage. I don't remember the stages of the Prestige. It's like the first stage, right? To show you the trick. So he drops the pen. That's the first stage. To show you something. I forgot the stages, but it's like the trick. Because instead of showing you, oh, here's this pen falling, and then here's this helium balloon I let go of, and then, I don't know, here's this egg suspended in water, showing you 3 different things. But what does he show you? Oh, the pen drops. Well, thanks, buddy.
Well, why do you think Neil deGrasse Tyson drops the mic?
1 sec. Shout out to Rinsler, who said, Nathan, did you see the redacted on the head of the Russian agency saying we didn't go to the moon? ? No. Anybody know what that's in reference? Thanks for the super chat, by the way, Rinsler.
Yeah, that happened over the weekend.
Yeah. A cosmonaut says never. Earth is flat and never went up there. Kind of stuff.
Really? Earth's flat? Who knew?
Is it that easy?
We did.
No, of course not. Because flat earthers will claim that the pen didn't fall because of gravity. But
we know
what are you wanting to say something?
That.
Just
I
Bill.
thought we were.
Just
yeah.
Bill. Go ahead.
Was he trying to determine the cause of the pen dropping? Is that what he was doing?
No, he was just dropping a pen and saying there's gravity proven.
Oh, he was saying, what, math? He's talking about math?
Talking about mass attracting mass, Newtonian gravity.
Well,
all he's got so far in the scientific method is he's witnessed an occurrence, and then from there he's going to move on to a fallacy to link it all together.
Quite
Did he?
possibly.
He didn't witness it. He caused it.
Exactly.
say.
That's why I said. That's why I said. Did he?
Caused it.
Yeah, but you're right, Chocolate. I was going to mention that, but by the same token, yeah, some things do fall down. Some things go up. Some things remain neutral.
But because of density.
Okay.
did the pin fall in a vat of mercury or something?
Oh, he just said it's because of density. Or is he saying flat earthers say it's because of density?
Yeah, but define density. What is density, Nathan?
It's an incomplete statement if you're going to talk about relative density with respect to the item and the medium that it's in. The item's density versus the specifics of the medium that it's in. Well, that's not just density, is it?
Does this model of
Go
physics
back
work?
there.
However, just before I go on, why does it matter what flat earthers say in this regard? Do we have a downward bias acceleration at 9.8 meters per second assertion in order to keep us attached to a spinning ball that's not flying us off at thousands of miles an hour at the equator? Now, we don't have a claim in that regard. You do, Globe Believer. But in every single example from this guy, and that is without exception, he juxtaposes his shitty claim that he can't prove, in this case, out-of-date Newtonian gravity, with some claim that flat earthers make that is ultimately not a claim they're making. It's a repositioning of his claim phrased by a flat earther in how it fails. So my claim in this instance, his claim of gravity, followed by flat earthers, not flat earthers, claim of density? Like, in respect to what? Why we don't fly off flat earth? Well, why would I be making that claim? Is that something I need to make a claim about? There's no apologetics needed where there is apologetics needed for a globe earth spinning and people not flying off it. It's absurd, and your apologetics lead you to gravity. Because we can debunk it doesn't mean that you ultimately have to offer up an alternative. That's us. You being you flat earthers in the audience. You don't. They've got a positive claim as apologetics. That's it. Doesn't mean
That's
you need
not
to
necessarily
explain
true,
anything.
Nathan.
Wait,
That's not necessarily. That is not necessarily true. I was told that you have to tell me what it is. If you're saying that it's not what I've been taught, then you tell me what it is.
What is?
but
The sky, for instance, and the lights in the sky, and the
What's-
fact that we're on a spinning water ball, and the
What's that-
fact that there's gravity keeping us on the spinning water ball.
Those are all
If
their
you're going to take
claims.
that away,
They're all their claims, not ours.
I
What-
I,
what-
I understand that, but I was told that. So you're telling me that if this is not correct, then what is it?
What is what? Like I say, if there isn't a spinning water ball to apologise for, there's no need to make any claim in that regard from our position. Oh, well, how do you explain it? Explain what? Why we're not flying off a spinning water ball? I don't think we're on a spinning water ball. There's nothing for me to explain here. You, on the other hand, have a spinning water ball that needs apologetics. When they fail, I don't have to offer up anything. But in this regard, this guy, like with every other claim, has offered up a false dichotomy with what flat earthers say about his ball versus what he says about his ball. It's just like, what?
Well,
Chat.
I'll take it.
Hold on, shout out to Jardo, who says, only relative density can explain the three-body problem. We don't have to. You know, the three-body problem in regards to gravity, again, why are we offering up answers to their apologetics? We don't need to. Thanks for the super chat, Jardo.
Nathan, I'll tell you exactly how my son told me. I need answers. If you're telling me it's not this, then what is it? What, we need to throw up our hands and say we don't know about anything? What's logical about that? So I realize it's a pain thing that's going on with a lot of these, like normies, let's say. They're in serious pain.
I don't care.
but Neil,
I don't
yeah,
care.
that's just
We don't have to offer. We
Go on,
don't have
Brian,
to
sorry,
offer
I'm
a
rubbing you.
replacement.
Go on, AJ, sorry.
I was saying we don't have to offer a replacement for their model to prove their model incorrect.
Precisely. No burden on you once you disprove their nonsense, especially when it comes to gravity, because there is no equivalent. The same goes for the sky vacuum. You know, you're saying that we've got gravity because we need something to hold the gas, which is unbonded, to the ground, so it doesn't do as gas behaves and move into the area of volume it has to fill. Right, so apologetics upon apologetics for a second law of thermodynamics violation, utilising gravity. Okay, I don't claim the sky's a vacuum. Well, how's the gas contained? I don't know. Does it matter? Yeah, it does, because you need to explain why the gas is here. No, I don't. Don't even need to mention containment. If they say, well, the sky's a vacuum, I know what the sky is. Nah, that's a violation of second law of thermodynamics. The sky can't be a vacuum. We'd all be dead. Well, have we got gas pressure? Why are you asking me to explain why we've got... I don't need to make apologetics for why we have gas pressure. Nor do I care. We're breathing it. Happy days. Now, beyond me saying, I don't know what the sky is, does it matter? There's nothing for me to apologise for to have to explain why we have gas pressure. You flat earthers out there need to pay attention to this. You need to understand what you need to explain and when you need to explain it. What you need to explain is anything that you have a positive assertion about. If you make a positive claim, you better damn well have an explanation for it. In other words, back your claim. If you don't make a claim, then you don't have to defend anything. And when they make a claim and ask you how you defend it, recognise what that is. It's called a burden of proof reversal fallacy. Understand when they are making a claim and make them back their claim. Sky vacuum, you say? No. This is why not. Well, what is the sky? I don't know. Don't have to explain anything. I've just disproven your claim. Moving on.
Right, and that's what and that's where the pain comes in, because they want an answer. I know my son wants an answer, and they think it's illogical to just say everything that we've learned in school and everything the scientists are teaching us is wrong.
But Neil, does Jacob not understand that relative density has been proven by a scientific method? Like anyone who says, like, let's just take this guy on this video. Anyone who says density and scoffs at it, even just saying it in an offhand way like that, are only showing their ignorance. Because if we take relative density, number one, and most importantly, it's been proven through scientific method to be correct. Number two, somebody saying it's not that, it's gravity. They're being ignorant about their own claims, because there is at present, five different gravities, and only one of them is validatable through a scientific method. And that's specific gravity, officially called officially specific gravity. But if you look into it, the correct name, and they even state this, for specific gravity is relative density. The very thing that we prove, or Anthony proved, and can be proven through scientific method. So anyone scoffing at that, it doesn't matter who they are, they're showing ignorance. That's just the way it is.
Brian, then why isn't it in a paper?
Why isn't it what?
Why isn't the experiment in a paper, right? What do they call that?
God.
And why isn't it in school?
Peer review.
But this is what I get.
But peer review has nothing to do with scientific method. The reason peer review exists is so they can give some kind of public validity to things that they can't prove through scientific method. Peer review, there's nothing that's peer reviewed that isn't pseudoscience. I have yet to come across one thing that's claimed to be peer reviewed that isn't pseudoscience. It's about understanding the difference between pseudoscience and science. Not all pseudoscience is bad, but you can't call it science if you can't support it through scientific method. And that's the problem we have in the world. That's what QE, that's why he put in such effort to try and get people to learn scientific method. Because Bowler was saying, well, that's something you learned years ago when you were a kid, and that's, this kind of thing. Yeah, that doesn't matter when you learn it. That is the way that you get the science. You don't get the science through not using it. You get the pseudoscience. So
funny how they say that, right? They used to tell us all the time, you idiot flat earthers, we have all this science that proves the globe. And then when we start talking about science, oh, the scientific method you guys are talking about, that's what you learned in 5th grade. Yeah, but that's what you came in and told us you had. Then when we start talking about it, what is it they say now, Brian?
Science doesn't prove anything.
Ah, shit. That's a hell of a switch. So if science doesn't prove anything, what happened to all the scientific evidence you have for this globe, even though that's a category area? That's curious.
Well, exactly. I mean, if science doesn't prove anything, then what use of it is it? So anyone who's making claims, that claim, and then tries to claim something like gravity or whatever, you can scoff and offhand dismiss it because they've just told you, they've just admitted before they went on to tell you their claims that none of these things are validatable through a scientific method. None of these things are can be proven according to them. They're admitting, I can't prove any of this. Gravity is real. That's what they're saying.
Right,
Well,
actually, and tensions are getting really high because I'm finding out, me personally, I'm finding out that they're understanding that this whole thing is collapsing, and they're just like grasping at, when they say they're grasping at straws, because they're constantly trying to. I don't even bring it up anymore. They keep coming to me and bringing things up to me, and then when I try to give an answer, they say, "I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. You're unintelligent." Crazy.
Well, remember when it was flat earthers deny science, and then their immediate go-to when we challenge them on science is to deny science?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Worked? Let's find out. This is Flurf Pratt. Flat Earth points refuted 1,000 times. Don't forget to rate the video. You can do is take interactive only to take care of. It's up to you. Suitable for people who regret sleep or AI development. Game and it take it from a professional. Mortimer81. Now back to the idiocy that is Flat Earth. Most flurfs, at least in my experience, claim that when things fall, it's because of a density differential.
What about when they go up? About clouds? Density differential would be a reasonable explanation if we had a claim to make. Shout out to BG in the super chat. Peer review is akin to one turd asking another turd, "Do I stink to you?" Very good. Thank you for the super chat.
Downward motion is caused by an object being more dense than the surface.
Why are we having to explain this? What's the reason for the claim? The reason you've got to claim gravity is because you're on a spinning water ball flying through space and you need a force to keep everything on it. But for us, why would we be explaining this? Is everyone following along with this vibe that I'm trying to put down here?
Yeah, Nathan, but the problem is with this specific subject, it's been proven through scientific method. So it's not as if we are making a claim about something when it comes to relative density that we can't support. Oh, you're saying we don't need to make a claim. No, but it is a stronger position when you can debunk their claim and prove, make a claim, debunk their claim, make your own claim, and then prove it through a scientific method. That is a stronger position as you can have. But you're right, we don't need to make a claim. But here is this guy, he just said density differential. If he might decide to go through relative density correctly, how is he going to debunk that? What's he going to do? It's just purely character assassination or something, or assassination of the topic. What's he going to do? If he details relative density correctly right now with the medium and everything else, like how do you debunk that? When it's when officially nobody officially in what they call mainstream science would even attempt to go against that because they know they can't.
I think the problem is relative density isn't the explanation of a phenomenon we don't observe. That's the
Yeah.
problem. It's not the
Exactly.
explanation of a phenomenon we don't observe. So he's looking for an explanation for a phenomenon that doesn't happen.
Good. Yes. That's the vibe I want to stick with, John.
Surrounding medium. Let's call this negative density differential. Rho medium minus rho object is less than 0.
Well, the ones that go up. Oh, my bad. This is a straw man nonsensical mathematical equation. When you're talking about physics that doesn't physic, you don't have this occurring. There's no physical nature to gravity. There's no phenomena. And when you drop a pen, I just have to look up at a cloud and then look at you with a strange look, going, fuck are you on about? Not everything falls.
I call this negative because it supposedly results in downward motion in an absolute
Hang on,
universal
Nathan.
down.
Say again, Brian?
No, this is complete nonsense. He decided to call it something negative density. That's complete rubbish. Unless you're in a vacuum, because no such thing as negative density. There's either density or nothing. You can't have negative density. It's completely illogical. This is his best straw man that he can come up with. Negative density. No, it's not. It's just a differential in density. The medium has density. Objects and substances have, including gases, have density. You know, that's that.
But Brian, real quick, think about it. If let's say in his mind he's saying negative density, right? Well, you can't have negative density, and I'm in his mind, right? You can't have negative density without positive density, right? Because there would be no need to call it negative. So what would happen in this scenario if positive density, quote unquote, is the factor? What would happen?
If positive density was the factor.
Yeah, because all right. So what he's doing, he's describing how his pen fell down, right? And he's saying what? It's negative density, and using his words. So what is he saying? Think about what he's saying.
He's saying that the air can't support the pen, the weight of the pen, and the weight is caused by density. That's what he's saying, which is true.
Yeah, I agree with that. But what would happen if it was the opposite way? Because surely there's got to be positive if he's going to assert a negative. But he's not going to bring that up, right? We all know that.
Things would go up. The pen would go up if it was
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he's still creating a little straw man. So him or some other baller or some random person who hears this could say to you, "But that negative density doesn't work." Like nobody here claimed nothing about negative density. Absolutely nobody that I've ever heard of in flat Earth has said that. And this guy is just throwing this term out there. And someone's going to end up asking one of us, that negative density stuff doesn't work. Like, nobody ever said that. It's this guy making shit up. Sorry.
I think redacted was something that was him trying to put it into the super chat. This is Rinsler. Tried super chatting the Russian video link. Here's the video title instead. Redacted. Channel. Head of Russian space agency drops bombshell claim. Did America fake the moon landing? The comment section is nuts. I'm sure I did hear something about this. Oh, I'll have to rack my brain. Go on.
Is he saying this is on that show Redacted that comes on YouTube with, I forget the guy's name. Is this a recent thing?
A man and his wife, a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that happened this weekend. Interesting. I'm gonna go look that up because I know about that show. So I'll see what I can find on that.
See, that's a plot point that you can argue within the paradigm, and it doesn't affect the paradigm.
Yep. Do you want to expand on that? That's a very important point.
Right. Arguing about whether someone did or didn't do something in a non-existent place doesn't prove whether the non-existent place exists.
Exactly. So over the weekend, I released a video that was called "From Earth to the Moon with Frickin' Laser Beams," and it's essentially that discussion, but on the topic of whether or not there's retro reflectors. It's exactly the same point. Whether or not somebody did or didn't achieve a trip through the wardrobe door to Narnia is the same principle. So if I say, I've been to Narnia, Narnia is real, but I'm suggesting that John, refracted curvature on the panel, says he's been to Narnia, but in fact hasn't. Now that opens the door for John and I to argue back and forth about whether or not John did indeed traverse the doors into Narnia or did not traverse the doors into Narnia through the wardrobe. Do you see the subtlety in how this argument's constructed? It's constructed within the idea that Narnia is bloody real. Likewise, space is not real. So arguing the toss about whether or not we achieved landing on the moon, putting retroreflectors on the moon, going through the sky vacuum to get to the moon, how they were jumping up and down on a certain gravity level on the moon, whether or not they had the capability of transmitting back from the moon, all of those things mean you can argue about, well, no, look, our lies are really good. We've got all of the bullshit technology to claim that we did actually transmit up through the second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum that isn't robbing all of our gas, leaving us suffocating, to get the transmission back. Not noticing that you've had that trip for the journey, for the signal, for them to talk to the president on the phone, go through an area of volume that would leave you all suffocating. So just as long as you're arguing within the paradigm of the sky vacuum and space being real, it doesn't really matter, because it still works within the context that space is real. So in fact, it's encouraged. Yeah. Argue about whether or not we were fighting Aslan in Narnia or just wasting time walking around the forest picking the speckly mushrooms that we all like eating. Because we say we were fighting Aslan, weren't we? Yeah. We weren't eating the speckly mushrooms. Yeah, you were eating the speckly mushrooms in Narnia, you lying sods. You were supposed to be fighting Aslan. You were eating the speckly mushrooms. Let's argue about this all day, because we're in Aslan land, right? We're there. We could be fighting Aslan. No. All of it's nonsense. Every last bit of it. So let's get to that first. Is space real? Are we going to be travelling to the moon at all? It's not. It gives a toss whether or not somebody says they did or didn't do something that's not possible. It's not possible. Let's address that first.
Obviously, I couldn't agree more. But every once in a while, some people like to dip their toe into Narnia and see what the fighting is about. So if you've got somebody in the Narnia narrative who wants to say, we did go, we didn't go, and then somebody else says, we did go, we didn't go, it's kind of interesting to see how that narrative falls apart.
Well, if you can lead how the narrative should be argued about, this sounds like an example of that. Shout out to Rinsler again. It says, the laser beams were actually put a point of the Russian guy's discussion. He wanted verification that they can do it. Right. So in my comment section for From Earth to the Moon with frickin' laser beams, one person in the comment took the bait in the comment section, was like, actually, beam divergence is the reason we got a signal back. I'm like, right. So ignore the 5 or 6 renditions of the fact we haven't got a sky vacuum in favour of arguing about how they'd work in the sky vacuum, arguing about how easy it would be to skin Aslan in Narnia. We've got the tools really easy. Look, here's the tool for skinning him so we can exist in Narnia. No, we're not going to do that. Not here. Other places might do that. We don't do that. Another shout out to Rinsler. As it's interested that let's start that again. Is it interested that the Russian guy was curious about that, but doesn't admit the space station is BS? Yeah, because like with the Russians and the Americans, in terms of how the propaganda's disseminated, they're just, we have this notion that they're superpowers against each other. No, the supporting negative narrative can be led by the opposition in Russia just as easily. How do you know he's Russian? How do you know he's not a bloody actor? He might be genuinely a Russian cosmonaut. Okay, fine. I accept that face value. So he's paid up by the government in Russia to push the propaganda of the day. Now, the propaganda's space, and you don't want people arguing about just whether or not space is real, because we were going there and the Americans were going there. But we will argue about whether or not they actually got to the moon, which is definitely in space where we can go. Let's push that out there, because we're controlling how the argument goes. Oh no, it's devastating. We're arguing about whether or not the Americans got to the moon. No, we're arguing in the context of Narnia, and that's being controlled by the Russian government. In this narrative. Probably our bloody government for all we know. How do you know it's some Russian? Have you gone and interviewed him? Have you checked his credentials? Have you done any primary source research on this Russian? Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I'm not putting you down. I don't want to discourage the super chats. But I'm teaching this to my 6-year-old at the moment. Primary source research. Don't believe everything that you read. See the source that the journalist got the information from. See if you can sort out that source. Find out where that source got the information from. It's simple stuff. Now, for all I know, having heard this third hand from a super chat, the Russian's just some actor. How do I know he's not? Till I do a bit of primary source research on it. Now, if he turns out to be a cosmonaut, that might be, what? Ooh, supporting the narrative then. What, that he's arguing about how things work in a sky vacuum? Isn't prepared to relinquish the idea of an orbital motion for the ISS. All right. Well, that's not very useful to me. This guy's as much my enemy as some tosser flat earther that I'd fight against. Or, not necessarily as much my enemy, but somebody who comes along that's, I don't know, Bart Sabrell. All right, you still think we're on a spinning water ball with the second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, but they faked going into. But it still exists. Why? All right, well, you choose to believe that bullshit. Oh, okay, well, you're as much my enemy if you're going to disseminate that in opposition to me, with natural law on my side, as any glober is. This is no different. Now, that might seem confrontational. It's like, well, you're not going to make many friends. Nah, most people talk shit. Me included sometimes, I can't help it. Yeah, and that's not going to make you any friends when you're on a show that's purely focused on hyper-specific truth, because we've been deceived on such a massive scale. So, are we here to make friends? No. But when it comes to people like the Russian cosmonaut, no offense to Rinsler, it just seems like if I'm hearing a lot familiar ring bells when I have every media source I can turned off, like, why have I heard this? Did my wife mention it to me? Did it come up in a Skype call over the weekend? Not that I had any. I was messing around my computer. But this is familiar. Why? I don't know why. Maybe it flashed up when I was tweeting my show. I don't know why it's familiar, but it tells me that it's probably everywhere at the moment to control the way the argument is led. That's how I view it straight off the bat. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Also, a couple of more super chats. Shout out to Retro Bill. He says, Andrej, I don't have to say that, Preston is a numpty computer scientist from Slovenia. Okay. Well, thank you for the super chat, Retro Bill. Also, Sasha, or Unitox Femu, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, Bosnian astronauts also lying about space. Well, there you go. Bosnians are at it. The Russians are at it. Yeah, if the most recent pandemic and how efficiently they locked us all in our own homes didn't tell you anything, I don't know what will. But there we go. We're going to move on with the video. Is there any more discussion points in this regard? I'm sure someone was trying to get a word in a second ago.
Down direction. If rho medium minus rho object is greater than 0, that is, if the object has lower density than the medium, then the positive density differential results in upward motion. The speed is also related.
Wow, 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 wow.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for that. Well, what about that pen you dropped? Surely everything goes down.
See, I knew that's where he was going to go, his little negative pressure, positive, or negative density, positive density. I knew that's where he was going to go. So he's telling you guys, you globers, that everything goes down, that there's a reason for things to go up. He just explained it to you. He's not going to tell you he just explained it to you. He just snatched his own wig off.
Related to the size of the differential.
No, what he's going to do... Sorry, Nathan. Very quickly. What he's looking to do is to come to a point where he can claim that flat earthers just don't understand buoyancy. And then he's going to claim buoyancy is caused by gravity. That's what he's a force of gravity.
Right.
I'm going to completely ignore that buoyancy is Archimedes' principle, which is over 900 years prior to any thoughts of a force of gravity.
100 people watching.
Explained.
Sorry to shout out. 100 people watching. Woo! Thank you very much to all of you who smashed the share button. 110 almost. So, yeah, please share the show if you've not done so already. Although, due to technical issues, I'm probably going to round out both the live show and the after show at the same time. So, we'll see how we go.
Faster in air than in water, because the density differential is greater in the former case. Sounds nice and neat, doesn't it? But does it work? Well, no. Here's a simple experiment that shows a severe flaw.
Not an experiment.
In this model. A simple set of scales and weights. If the Flurf's model is accurate...
Flurf's model for what? Keep saying, we don't need to explain this. Now, even though I don't need to explain it, I was privileged enough to sit around with some very smart gentlemen, that would mainly be Dr. John D, Adam Meakin, Quantum Eraser, a few others who came in and out periodically, and I didn't say a great deal, but I sat around and listened to them thrashing out an issue in regards to the first cause, if you will, of relative density disequilibrium. Now, after a lot of discussion, it was concluded that what you are describing in terms of why that effect occurs to begin with, why do things order themselves in the way that they do? Well, you're talking about an entropic effect. Now, when you're talking about an entropic effect, you're talking about something that has no first-order cause establishable. Why? Because if you rewind the arrow of time, another word for entropy, where do you end up? Well, you end up at one place. Now, at that place, there may be two positions that you can take. They've got a title. It's called the ontological primitives. Now, at the beginning of time, you can only explain it, if you want to rewind the arrow of time to explain this effect, you need to know the first order cause of entropy. The first order cause of the second law of thermodynamics. A law, description only, of nature. Now, laws don't have scientific validity. Immediately shooting down his notion that this is an experiment. You're never going to provide an experiment for an entropic effect, because you're trying to rewind the arrow of time to the first causal influencer. Now, if you want us to get into the ontological primitives, those of you in the audience, as we're coming up on the hour mark, then fine. There is a God. Entropy cannot be in existence by way of nature inventing the first order effect of its own existence. So you can't have nature create nature. Not only is it a first and second law of thermodynamics violation, it's nonsensical. Nature can't create itself. You need an outside influencer. Ergo, there is a God at the beginning of the first order effect of entropy. So a second order effect of entropy would be the disequilibrium, things falling down, some things going up. So a second order entropic effect is what we're actually talking about. So although that's made to some people in the audience have sounded reasonably intelligent, none of that's come from my own brain. It's come from people far more intelligent than I who've thrashed it out mentally. But I don't need to explain it. I'm only demonstrating that I can to piss in the face of this being an experiment and point out that he's trying to explain the effect when it comes to entropy. You're never going to do that. Now, as much as I'd love to think that you could eventually do that because it's an effect, you can put it through the scientific method. This isn't that, by the way. But it doesn't mean you're ever going to establish the cause of entropy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were finished at that point. No, that's not what this guy is doing now. This guy is moving on to the straw man. And this is the best thing about this is that anyone who's using logical thought would know that this guy, they don't have to be a flat earther. This guy is making a fool of himself. Because what he's about to do is take, let's say, one can of beans and put them on one side of the scale and put two cans of beans on the other side and show that the one with the two cans of beans go down. But then he's going to claim, but there's the same density. Not what that is a way of trying to avoid how density creates weight, right? So if I double up, if I quadruple myself, right, those three people together will be heavier than me alone. But the whole point is that what's creating the weight? It's the density in the first place. So the density doesn't have to change if you're changing the volume but keeping the density equal. That's all he's doing. He's expanding the volume but keeping the density equal, and then trying to say that's a debunk of relative density. When that is about weight, it's not about density differential. It's about the creation of weight, and that's what he's trying to strawman now. It's totally illogical. But
how can he debunk relative? sorry, Brian, but how could he debunk relative density when he just proved it?
You can't. You're talking about the description of an effect. Well, you don't debunk effects, you observe them and try and explain them if you're putting them through the method of science. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say there's going to be no after show, unfortunately, because we have suffered a technical issue. I may not even get an outro play, so there will be a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. And another massive thank you to today's Discord, G+, and Matrix panel for making today's live and pre-show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!